Hey everyone, welcome back to the Board Game Spotlight. Today, we get to look at Brook City from Blacklist Games. This is a cooperative game of blockbuster cop action for 1 to 4 players. Now this is the demo kit, so it's for 2 players. So let's take it to the table and I'll tell you about it. In Brook City, we are playing as blockbuster cops, right? This is Lethal Weapon. We're trying to stop criminals and ultimately we're trying to stop this jerk, Slade Harper, from taking over the city with his funding of the syndicate. So we are going to play as the hot-headed, shoot first, ask questions later, Gabe Fulton, and his more prepared, cautious partner, Selena Gonzalez. So each of them has a stress level. If this were to bust, if we get 10 stress on our turn, at the end of our turn, we would lose the game. There's also an action that each card has that we can utilize on our turns, and so we'll get to that in a minute. So there are 2 ways that the cops can lose the game. Either a cop gains 10 stress tokens, or if Slade Harper gains 5 influence. So at the beginning of the game, we're gonna set up the criminal deck, and this setup card tells us exactly how to do that, and then it tells us what our losing conditions are. Then we're gonna set up this case deck, and again, this case deck tells us exactly how to set everything up. We're playing the Slain Diplomat case. And then it's going to give us some rules by which these cases work. Now there are 5 cases in the game, and each of them corresponds to a token. Up here we have the dumped revolver. So you're going to place these tokens exactly where it tells you on the card. So this location is L31. So you'll notice on the board that there is a column and a row. And that column goes 1 to 31 and A through T. So for this location, we would choose L31, and you'll notice this is L31. So there you go. That's how you set up all of the tokens. Slade starts in the theater. He runs the theater. That's where he's funneling his cash to the syndicate. There are also these lead cards. Now these lead cards are additional interactions that cops can take to gain some actions. These are some nifty ways to help the cops achieve their goals, and so those are also placed in different places in Brook City. So the 2 cops are going to start in Brook City Police Department. We get 2 cruisers. Now these cruisers are pretty cool because they move a little differently. Instead of a cop moving grid to grid, a cop gets 3. The cop cars move 3 grid spaces at a time, so they can move much quicker. And there's a special action. If you're driving this vehicle, you can move your figure to any location, then discard this card. So if it's coming down to the wire, you need to win, you need to get across town extremely quickly, discard this, move your figure. Otherwise, while you're driving, you can move an additional street during each of your move steps if you have at least 1 crime in your crime area. So let's get to how we get crime. So how does Brook City become the city full of rampant crime? Well, we're gonna have these reference cards that tells us exactly what we do on our turns. The first thing we're going to do now, the rounds in Brook City are fluid. There is no first player. There's no, hey, you need to go first. This is table talk at its finest. You need to determine what crimes you need to take care of. You need to figure out which of the cases you need to crack first, and then you're gonna take your turns. When a cop takes its turn, you flip this over to signify that you're finished. At the beginning of a cop's turn, we're going to draw and resolve one of these crime cards. Now, if it's an asset, assets go to the criminal play area. They are very strong criminals. This is just a petty criminal. He's trying to do a takeover. Again, we look at the location, and this is P29. So we'll grab one of these miniatures, and by the way, these miniatures are outstanding quality, and we'll put it on P29. Now this crime is going to go into my play area. So it has a resistance of 1 to gun, 1 to cop, and 0 to walkie-talkie. It needs 3 progress tokens in order for us to bust this crime. So this is going to go into my play area, signifying that I have a crime active. I am trying to stop this crime. The way that you stop a crime is that you go to a location, you need to encounter this criminal, and then you're going to roll these dice. Now these are really nice custom dice, and I'll explain what each of these symbols are. This is a success, this is a critical success, and that allows you to roll an additional die. So typically, if we were to use our hot-headed action, we get to move 2 spaces and encounter twice. So encounter 2 is 2 dice, so we would roll these. If we get a critical success, we get to roll another die, and you can start chaining those together. So again, we need 3 progress tokens to beat this criminal. Progress tokens are these tokens here, these handcuffs. And so to bust that card, we would need to place 3 successes on that card. When you move, your units or your character can move 3 grid squares at a time, unless you get into a cop car, and your cop car can move 2 grid squares at a time. So you can enter and exit your vehicle at each step of the act phase. Now during the act phase, after we have resolved our criminal, we'll go into the fun part. This is the lethal weapon, the die-hard part of stopping this crime. So we're going to be able to move. We can play a card, and we're going to start with 4 cards in our hand. And so some of these cards, you'll notice, here's a tactic. Tactic cards are placed into our player tableau and can be activated during actions or encounters. So this military experience card is very, very good because if we use our hot-headed action, we get to reduce the resistance by 1. So we could play this card into our tableau and it would be active until it's discarded or we have to discard it. We then have encounter cards. Now these encounter cards are going to allow you to encounter your criminals. These are very powerful. You need to make sure you have these because then you're going to be able to roll dice and then you can suffer stress to add to progress. There's a lot of really neat things you can do with these cards. You have abilities. This ability is going to allow each cop to move 3. So you're going to want to use this card play and, table talk depending on what you have available to help you. But let's go ahead and play a card. So we'll play our tactic card down to our tableau and then we can do our move step. Now these steps in this phase are fluid. You can take them in any order. So let's play this tactic and then we can move. We can get into our police cruiser and we can go 1, 2, 3, and we have a crime in our area which allows us to move a 4th. So that would be our move action. Now we could take an action step. We can gain a hunch, and hunches are going to be used for different actions where you need to add hunch tokens to some of these cases in order to even be able to go to them. So here at the victim's remains, we cannot even encounter this card unless we're able to discard a hunch from it. We can place hunches on these case cards through successfully encountering a target. So each time a cop successfully encounters a target, they can place one of their hunches on any clue in play. And this is going to be very, very important that you're gaining these hunch tokens and you're placing them on the clues. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to solve the cases. So we could take a hunch. We could also move again, or we can do an interact. Interact actions are not encounters. They are a little different. Some of these are going to have interact rules. So this says, to interact, you discard a hunch from this card to place a progress on this card. We also can use a card action. So with our card actions, we could use Gabe's hot-headed, or we could use any other type of effect. There are a lot of cards in your deck. Now, after you finish your act phase, that's where the meat of the game lies. Then you're gonna go to the crime phase and you're going to activate the cards in your crime area. So we would activate this card, and so this says we place an influence on this card or we discard a card we control. Now that's very bad for us. A card we control would be our police cruiser or our tactic card, so we most likely do not want to do that. However, if this card gets 3 influence on it, we discard those influence and we give an influence to Slade. Now remember, Slade, if he has 5 influence at any time during the game, he wins. So there is a balance between not giving up cards and pushing your luck at when to put progress tokens on your crimes. And again, we want to stop this crime. Stopping the crime is going to stop this activation. So as quickly as possible, we want to take down this criminal so he's not hurting us any longer. Then we're going to draw a card and we'll flip our card over to show that we finished. So then Selena can take her turn. Selena has different actions. She's your long range type character. So she can encounter different ways. Her tactics, she can actually use determination. So during each of her encounters, she can suffer a stress to gain an additional die. Then she has this patience. So during each of your walkie-talkie encounters, you gain additional die. And then she has that prepared keyword. And then her abilities are really cool too. So she can move 5 spaces. And if she's in a location she can place a progress on any target on the board not in that location. Now, locations are your buildings. So if she's in a location and she can encounter something from a long way away. After each player has gone through their turn, you then go through the criminal's turn. Now, during the criminal's turn, you're going to activate each of the cards in the criminal play area. So to activate this investor, we would move all influence from each blackmail card to that card. So there are criminals who are committing blackmail that may come out onto the board. And so if any blackmail cards are on the board and they have influence, those are shifted from those crimes to the asset cards. They're funneling those funds again. So then when she has influence based on our funding the syndicate mission, if an investor has 3 influence, you remove 3 and add it to Slade. So there are a lot of ways that Slade can start gaining influence very quickly if players are not paying attention to that. Then you're going to go through the case turn. The group is going to activate each of the case cards. So if there's an activation on a case or a case that you have drawn, so you're going to draw one of these cases and you're going to resolve it. So this says discard a hunch from a clue. If we were able to place a hunch on a clue, we would have to discard it. If we're unable to discard one, we have to suffer a stress. So we do not have any hunches to discard very early in the game. So this is a card that's going to hurt us. Each cop is going to suffer 1 stress. And so you're going to place one of these stress tokens on your cop to signify that they are under pressure and hopefully they don't crack. Then you're just going to discard that case. Each cop's going to flip over their turn action card and you're going to continue to do this. The game is going to end when the cops either gain control of all of these clue tokens. So there are 5 clue tokens scattered throughout the board and you want to gain control of all of them. And to gain control of these, so these cases, in order to pass one, you can see that they have some pretty high resistance. And so you're going to want to accumulate really good cards in order to pass these. And then this 5P signifies it's 5 times the number of cops in play. So right now we have 2 cops in play. So it would be 5 times 2 is 10. So we would need 10 progress tokens to be able to flip this card over and bust it. So this would get removed. We would then flip over this token to signify that we have successfully solved that case. And then at any time during the game, we can go interact with it and collect that token. We need all 5 tokens in order to win the game. Okay, so this has been your overview of Brook City from Blacklist Games. Blockbuster cop action, lethal weapon, die hard, open world, criminal investigation and crime stopping action for 1 to 4 players. If this sounds like something that's interesting to you, take a look at the description below for a link to the Kickstarter. This has been Derek with the Board Game Spotlight, and we'll catch you next time.